Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. If this is your first time here, a special welcome to you. My name is Jody and I love top value timepieces. I would also love it if you'd subscribe to the channel by hitting the big subscribe button. Now, one of my all-time favorite watch brands is Casio. I love Casio watches. I've had Casios on my wrist and in my collection since I was a little kid, and that shows no signs of changing now that I'm a little bit older. There are just so many of them to choose from and they offer outstanding value for money. If you're not buying a Casio at this price point, chances are you're buying rubbish. So today I'm going to show you what I think are the top 10 Casios that you can buy for less than $30 US. Now, I'm not one of these watch guys that pops up pictures of watches they've never tried and never seen in the flesh. I put my money where my mouth is. I bought all 10 of these Casios and what you'll be seeing are my personal watches. If you want to pick up one of these 10 Casios for yourself, you can click the link in the description of the video. It'll take you to my Amazon selection. All 10 of these watches feature, along with a whole bunch of other top value timepieces that won't break your budget that I've reviewed on the channel over the last couple of years, all with little miniature reviews attached. Now, $30 doesn't quite get you a G-Shock and it doesn't get you a Casio Duro, but there's still plenty to choose from. We've got digital, we've got analog, we've got Ani-Digi, there's a solar power, a world timer, there's even one with a vibrating alarm. Now, there's a lot to get through, I'm not going to hang about, let's get on with it. So 10 Casios to show you, perhaps a couple of bonuses as well. Now, I'm sure you'll have seen a number of these watches before in the past. Perhaps you've already got a couple of them in your collection. There'll be some old favourites a little later on, but I'm also going to chuck in some new ones. Perhaps watches that you haven't considered before, but I think you should consider. And I'm going to start with one of those. I picked this one up, the Casio 217, just before Christmas, and I think it's fantastic. So we're starting somewhere in the middle of the price range today with this one, $15.99. There's a blue one, there's a gold one. The gold one's a little bit cheaper. That's the one that I bought. Now, Amazon claims 40mm diameter. I don't get that. Not across the mid case anyway. 38mm, 11mm thick, lug to lug of 43. Now, lug width of 18mm. The majority of the Casios on the list today have 18mm lug width. Only 32 grams, so super light. 50 meters of water resistance, so you can properly take this one swimming. Not a lot of features though, if we're being honest. It kind of does everything you need it to do and not much more. It has an alarm, it has a stopwatch, one push to start, one push to stop, one push to reset. Pretty straightforward stuff here. It also has the day and the date displayed on the dial and a decent LED backlight. Single orange LED in one corner, pretty powerful when you engage this one. You hold down the button and it will stay on for as long as you like as well. Flipping it over to the back, all of these Casios have very simple screw-down stainless steel case backs. Batteries vary, 3 years, 7 years, up to 10 years. I think this one's 7 years. You do not need to take this to a watchmaker. You can pick up a battery on eBay for $1 and do the job yourself. I think this one looks good on wrist. I have a Joe Average 7-inch wrist for your reference, and I think this slightly larger size looks pretty good. There it is, zoomed out for a bit of perspective, I think. A decent size of watch for a gentleman. Now, here it is compared to the F91W. This is the kind of spiritual successor to the F91W, and it has the same features, very similar look, but it's considerably bigger, and that's why I think this is one that perhaps you haven't considered in the past, but for the price, value, specification ratio, you probably should consider it in the future. Next up, it is one of those old favourites. It's the Casio AE1200, aka the Casio Royale. These things are pretty much all over YouTube, and with good reason. I've made a number of videos about this watch myself, and I've gone on record on a couple of occasions claiming that this is the world's best value watch, and I stand by that 100%. So here it is, the legendary Casio Royale then. Now, this one on Amazon, sticker price it says there is $22, a little more for the metal one. However, if you dig into this listing, $19.08, brand new, supplied by Amazon. So you can still get them for less than a 20, and you get a fairly unusual looking timepiece for your money, don't you? But fully featured. You can't argue with the features. Now, diameter 40mm on this one, a little further if you do include those pushers. It's a bit thicker and chunkier generally, 12.5mm thick, lug to lug of 45. It does have that slightly odd 18mm lug width again though. Pretty light at 40 grams and 100 meters of water resistance. So again, you can get this one properly wet. You can take it swimming, snorkeling, even a bit of diving if you want. Now the strap is tapered. I'd recommend just leaving it on the original band. So let's talk features then. It is a world timer, of course. You can flick through a whole bunch, I think it's about 65 different pre-programmed global cities, and the map there shows you exactly which time zone you're looking at. The analog three-hander in the top left will always remain on the home time. 5 alarms, a countdown timer, here it is counting down from a minute, start, stop, reset. Again, all of these Casios are very simple in operation, and a stopwatch, of course. Back to the home time there, day, date, day of the week, and so on. And you can flick through 4 pre-programmed time zones. So if you've got friends or family in certain time zones, they're always there, again with that pictorial representation. Now, 2 big, juicy orange LEDs in the bottom corners here mean that this one is a pleasure to use after dark. You're going to have no problems reading this one. And a 10-year battery. Again, the value of this watch is outstanding. You're not going to have to replace the battery for a decade, depending of course how much you fiddle around with it. It looks good on wrist, 7-inch wrist as noted. It's one of the bigger watches on the list today. These Casios do tend to be a little bit smaller. This one is a sizable piece on wrist. Now I've also got one of the stainless steel banded ones. Not stainless steel case, just a stainless steel bracelet. It's a plastic case coated to look like it's made of metal. The bracelet is okay. It is a bit of a hair nipper though, but still can be used for under $30. Now perhaps you've noticed the difference. I modded mine. There is actually a mod scene for these watches. I cleaned mine up. I took a lot of the graphics on it. Casio do tend to be a little bit heavy-handed with their adverts, but a fantastic watch, less than $20. I cannot recommend this one enough to you. At number 3 is one of 2 calculator watches that I'm going to show you today. Nothing quite says geek chic like a Casio calculator watch. Now, there's a reason I'm wearing the Back to the Future t-shirt today. This CA53W was the watch worn by Michael J. Fox, aka Marty McFly in Back to the Future. If you want a more contemporary reference, it was also on Walter White's wrist in Breaking Bad. So a super retro Casio calculator that was in one of the best movies of all time, yours for less than $20 US. Now this one, because of those rubber keys, reminds me of the old rubber key ZX Spectrum 48K computers from the early 80s. It's probably got a similar amount of processing power. Not a big watch, it's got that longer than wide thing happening, 34.5mm in diameter, quite a slim 8mm thick, 43 lug to lug, no surprise 18mm lug width, 25 grams, nice and light, and only water resistance. If you see water resistant on a watch, I would try and avoid getting it wet. They're not really going to like it all that much. So features, the first one at the first touch of the button is the calculator. Oddly enough, that's what this watch is about. So 36 plus 0.25 equals 36.25. Hooray, it works. Keep pushing the button and you're onto some fairly simple basic Casio features. We have got an alarm, a single alarm there, and the usual stopwatch. But there's no light in this one, so you're not going to be able to tell the time after dark. You do have the day of the week displayed on the dial at all times, and if you want to set the thing, there's a little bit of a recessed pusher on the side for you. Now there it is on wrist, and it looks fantastic. Achingly 1980s, this one. Very comfortable bands on these, they're resin, they do degrade after time, but you should get a number of years worth of use out of them, and I love the fact that they put Casio on the buckle. Nice touch at the price. So if you can't quite afford an Omega Seamaster from the James Bond franchise, why not pick up one of these as worn by Walter White in one of the greatest TV series of all time, or by Marty McFly in one of the best movies ever made, all for less than a 20. Now I said in the intro that $30 US doesn't quite get you into a Casio G-Shock, but it gets you into something pretty close. This W735H has the vibrating alarm. How many watches have that feature? There are less than a handful, I'm sure. It's big, it's chunky, it's fully featured, it kinda looks like a G, but it's cheaper. It's cheaper and it's available in a whole bunch of different colours, all floating between 25, 35 US dollars. There's a kind of two-tone brown one if you live in the desert. Now I like this one myself, it's the black with gold tones, I think it looks quite rich, $27.95. But somehow I ended up with a purple one, a kind of Prince tribute watch if you will. Now this is definitely the biggest timepiece available today. I've quoted this one at 45mm in diameter, bigger if you add those pushers, 15mm thick, substantial 51 lug to lug, but again only 80mm lug width. You're not going to be taking this one off the strap anytime soon. 10-year battery, 100 meters of water resistance. Now lots of graphical displays here, counting the seconds as they go by. You flick it once and it's onto a 24-hour countdown timer. Obviously you can adjust that as you see fit, and the dial goes crazy, all those little LED panels flashing on and off. Another push and you've got a stopwatch counting up rather than down this time, and once again the little dial is going crazy. Quite an interesting and visually engaging piece, this one. There's a dual time feature on this one as well, a single alarm, and of course it's a vibrating alarm. If you're out camping in the wilds and don't want to frighten the bears in the morning, perhaps this is the one for you. Or if your partner is just a really light sleeper and you've got to get up earlier than them. There are only a few watches that have this feature. This is undoubtedly the cheapest of them all. Now it has got a bit of the G-Shock about it. That integrated bracelet protects the watch if you drop it. I don't think the module inside is as protected as you'll find in a G-Shock, but then again this is nowhere near as expensive as you'll get on a G. That's that slightly small lug width demonstrated for you. The integrated band though is a good one, as is the light. Two big bright white LEDs, one push, and you get 3 seconds of illumination. So again, a very versatile, usable and rugged watch, this one. Plenty of wrist presence, probably the most wrist presence of all of the Casios that I'm going to show you today. Perhaps that's because it's purple, I'm not sure, but it's a big and chunky one. If you like your watches bigger and chunkier, this is one of the best Casios you can buy at this price that's going to do that for you. It's going to give you that look. So vibrating alarm, kind of looks like a G, plenty of features, 100 meters of water resistance, 10-year battery, under 20 bucks, perhaps one you've not considered, but another one that I think you should. And at number 5, what list of top value Casios would be complete without the legendary F91W? Now this is the world's best selling watch. Casio ships a couple of million of these units each year, and it's easy to see why. It's the price. And that price is $10.99 at the moment. If you sniff around on Amazon or set an alert, perhaps you can even pick this one up for under 10 bucks. You can get the metal braceleted cousin, the A158, coming in at around $16.99. Same watch, just a little bit more expensive because of that metal bracelet. Oddly enough, I've got one of each, and I do wear them both fairly regularly. It is the smallest of the pieces that I'm showing you today, this one, 33mm in diameter. Kind of suits guys with slightly smaller wrists perhaps. Only 8.5mm thick, 37mm lug to lug. Super light at 21 grams on the resin, 45 grams, double the weight if you want something more substantial, but still not all that heavy on the bracelet. 30 meters of water resistance. I wouldn't be getting this one wet, but there are some videos of guys diving in their F91s, so it can be done. Again, much like the 217 that I started with, not a lot of features. You've got an alarm, a stopwatch, and a truly terrible backlight. This watch is now well over 25 years old, and the technology inside it demonstrates that ably. Putting it on wrist, and as noted, one of the smaller of the watches today, but I still think perfectly wearable. Sometimes it's really nice to wear a watch that only weighs 20 grams, so you barely know that you're wearing a watch at all. Now that's the silver banded cousin, the A158. Bit more presence on this one, a little bit trendy, the 158. I think a lot of students and younger people who perhaps can't afford or don't want to drop big money on a fashion watch, they go for one of these Casios, as well they might. They're fantastic. It's a great brand on your wrist for $11 US. Now the F91 and A158 are all well and good, but if you're a big guy like me, they might be a little bit small on your wrist. Enter our next contender, the A168. Now this one can still be found for just around the $20, $21.95 in this case, and it does feature some significant improvements over the previous two, the 91 and the 158. There it is next to the 158, and you can see it's bigger in almost every dimension. Not much bigger though, I have to say. 35mm, 10mm thick, it's got the same lug width, and it is heavier at 49 grams. Believe it or not, this is the heaviest watch on the list today. No improvements to the water resistance though, still only 30 meters, and no real improvements to the module inside either. It's pretty basic, but you do get a vastly improved electroluminescent backlight. In fact, here are the two watches compared side by side. No comparison. You can barely read the 91 after dark, whereas the 168, nice and legible. Looks good on wrist. It is a bit thicker. You do notice that extra size when you're wearing it. So if you like the look of the previous two watches but want something a little more usable and a little larger looking and feeling, but at a similar price, then I can highly recommend the A168. At number 7, it's the first analog three-hander on the list today. Indeed, it's the only analog three-hander on the list today. It's the MRW 200H. Now this can be yours for less than $20 US, features a super comfortable strap, three-hand plus day-date complication, and 100 meters of water resistance. Insane value. And an insane number of colours to choose from. I think there are about a dozen different models. You get Arabics in the dial, some of them have just got circular indices, take your pick. There's some garish colours available as well. You should be able to find one of your liking, all around that $20 US point. Again, I ended up with a purple and yellow one. This is the second one of these that I've ordered. The last one was bright orange. You may as well jazz it up with some funky colours on these ones. So 43mm in diameter, 12mm thick, 47 lug to lug. Again, slightly smaller 18mm lug width, 38 grams and 100 meters of water resistance. So a decently usable amount of WR if you want this one as a weekend water sport watch. So we've got three-hand plus date and a bi-directional bezel. Not a lot of resistance to the bezel, kind of reminds me of the Vostok Amphibia, but you can't adjust it if you want to time a parking meter rather than a dive. I don't think this one's a hardcore dive watch. The crown does not screw down, but one pop you can adjust that day-date complication, as you can see me doing there, and a second pop adjust the time. Very, very simple watch in operation. Now the band on this is softer and more flexible than the other resin bands that we've looked at so far. Super comfy watch to wear. Again, stainless steel screw down case back, a dollar battery and a Japanese movement, assembled in China, but a dollar battery Japanese movement in this one. Good for the long term. So there it is on my wrist. Certainly has a bit of presence. Different case shape to a lot of the other watches that I've showed you today because it's circular as well. Very, very comfy strap. And again, love how they can do the little Casio logo on the buckle there, all for under $20 US. So if you don't fancy picking up a digital Casio, but you still want one of these versatile value pack watches, but a traditional three-hander, this is the one to go for. Do you want to keep track of 2 different time zones? Do you have friend and family in another part of the world? Or perhaps you're just an international business person on a budget, can't quite stretch to a Rolex GMT? No problem, Casio's got you covered. Did someone say Cartier tank for less than $30? Now there's 2 different colorways, there's different dial colors, there's Arabics or batons with these. Some of them stretching over 30, but there's plenty of options for you under $30 US. I've had a silver black dial one in the past, but I opted for a gold one this time. Again, super, super retro. So the thinnest watch today at 30mm in diameter, but it feels bigger on wrist. I think perhaps because the lug to lug is a little longer at 39mm, it's got a bit more weight to it. Again though, only water resistant. I wouldn't be getting this one wet. I certainly wouldn't be taking it into a pool with you. So you've got that 2-hand analog up the top and a digital display down the bottom. Now they can be set to 2 different times as I have, or you can have them at the same time. One push of the button and you're on to the day and the date of the month. Another push, and believe it or not, they've squeezed an alarm into this. So there's a bit of versatility even with this tiny little retro package. Again, the dual time there, and it's got a stopwatch as well. So an alarm and a stopwatch, 2 different time zones, all for less than $30 US. A cracking little watch, this one. Now, the bracelets on these, you know, they're all right. They're nicely adjustable, but there is a price to pay. They're gonna nip the occasional hair off your arm, but they're comfy little things in operation once you've got them on wrist. Now I think it looks great on wrist. I'm delighted that I went for the gold one this time, having had a couple of years with a silver dialed one previously. And as noted, I think it looks bigger than that initially quite small 30mm diameter would suggest. Looks like a watch your granny might have owned in the 80s perhaps, but that's part of the appeal for me. And at number 9 on the list, it's one of my personal favourites. It's the second of the two calculator watches, the DBC32. Now I think this one is so good, I've got two of them. I picked up my first one in Singapore in 2007 I think, and it's still going strong. Again, like the Casio Royale, you've got two choices, resin or stainless steel. I'm going to recommend the resin one because it fits into budget stainless steel. You're going to have to do some digging if you want that one for a 30. $25 for this one. I think it's a more modern interpretation of the calculator watch, if that's not a complete oxymoron. It's also a little larger. There it is next to the retro CA53, and you can see the difference. It's a much more wearable watch, I think, for bigger guys. Hence the reason I've got two of them. There's also another reason that I've got two of these watches. I'll get to that in just a second. So it's multilingual, it's got a data bank, 10-year battery, and a decent illuminator in it to boot. Slightly unusual dimensions, kind of banana shaped, thicker in places than others, but it does mean that it wears very well as a result of that. So I've measured it at its widest point, 37.5 at the top, thickness of 12mm at the top again, lug to lug of 50 so it sits longer and flatter, lug width 22mm. Very unusual on this list. I'll show you this one and the silver version on some 22mm straps later. So data bank, you can store 25 numbers if you're a bit forgetful. Calculator, 3 times 8 equals 24. Hallelujah, it works. You've also got the usual plethora of Casio features. You've got a countdown timer, bunch of alarms, stopwatch, etc, etc. This one also has an auto light feature, so if you tip your wrist towards you at night time, the light will go on for 3 seconds. Obviously that will erode a fair degree of the battery though. Date, year, day of the week, etc, all displayed on the dial. This is another watch to feature one of those big orange LEDs down in the bottom left hand corner. Makes such a difference if you're going to wear this one 24/7 if you're using it after dark. And there it is on my wrist. Wears quite unusually, but I think that's part of the charm. Wears very well indeed. Again, light, 30 odd grams. This one's a bit heavier, the stainless steel version. I've had this for a dozen years and it still looks pretty good. I think it's only the second battery that I've put into it. Battery's lasting 7 years, but change up those straps. 22mm lug width. Here's the resin banded one on a hand stitch Italian leather strap that costs more than the watch. Or what about the stainless steel look one, but on a mesh this time? You can mix and match these ones in a way that you can't quite do that with the others. It's a great watch if you want a calculator in a slightly larger, more wearable, modern looking case shape. And finally, it's the Casio EQS800W, the most difficult Casio on the list to remember today, that's for sure. It's also possibly the most fully featured. Ani-Digi, we've got a light, we've got a bunch of alarms, and it's solar powered. Not going to be easy to find one of these for 30, but it can be done, I assure you. So well done if you've stuck out the list to number 10. I always try and put a bit of a treat at the back end of this list, and I love this watch. $32.50 is the best price today. Set an alert if you're on a budget. Wait for it to come under 30. It will, I assure you. Now I've had this one for 5-6 years. You can see it's a little bit worn. I've also replaced the band with a Velcro surf style band. Very comfortable, these ones, and it doesn't look odd in spite of the 18mm lug width. This is my designated zombie apocalypse watch. If the zombies strike, this is the watch that I grab before I run out the house and run for my life. 42mm diameter, 10mm thick, 47 lug to lug, super light, and a very usable 100 meters of water resistance again, and so many features. Now that's solar powered, that's telling you that the battery is at mid-strength, mid-level if you will, and it's also a world timer, the usual 60 plus cities you can program this one to. It's got 5 alarms, it's got a stopwatch, it's got a countdown timer, etc, etc. All adjustable at the touch of one of these buttons. You pick a different time zone, you press set, and it has this rather attractive little feature where the hands move slowly to their relevant position. You've got that little second timer on the bottom right of the dial there, continuously climbing up. A very nice watch in operation. Now it's got a bit of lume on the hands, but it's also, because it's the Ani-Digi, it's got a light built into it as well. Looks fantastic after dark. The lume isn't all that great though, if I'm being honest. Looks pretty good on wrist, nice size, but it doesn't have a lot of weight to it. So it's a big watch to wear if you don't like big watches. That's it on my 7-inch wrist. I think it looks perfectly in proportion. A nice outdoorsy one for the weekend. So do some digging, pick one of these up for $30. I think you'll be very satisfied with your purchase if you do. So there you have it, another incredible selection of top value Casio timepieces for you today. I started this list a couple of years ago with 5 watches. This year it's up to 10, perhaps it'll expand to 20 or even 30. There are just so many great value Casios out there and they release new models every year. Casio definitely the #1 brand that you can put on your wrist, I think, for less than $30 US. Don't forget, if you're interested in picking up one of these, you'll find a link to my Amazon storefront in the description of the video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.